Hello, everyone. Welcome to Natty News, the nattiest news show in the world. My name is Anwar and Natty, and I'm joined by Pat. Natty News Woo. Pat, how are you doing today?
Doing great. I finally got this shirt from Anwar after it was a month or two since we ordered it. So doing great. It's a cold day in Vancouver. We have to end the year with a weather recap.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Pat the Weatherman Woo. That's really what I should be calling you. Uh, Pat, not only the cold weather, but back to home workouts. Omicron has striked, and I think this might be the first time the gyms have closed for us. So,
Has it
uh,
been that many times in Vancouver? I think it closed. Oh wait, no, you might be right.
not only like also California too. Like when I was there
Yeah.
too, it's the same story. So, um, and I think a lot of listeners probably wherever they are, there's a lot of communities that they've been taking Omicron very seriously and closing the gyms and all that. And, oh man, I'm back to doing push-ups, pull-ups, and body weight squats.
Oh man, it's it sucks, right? And I just found out from a friend yesterday that like not only a swimming center is open, that's fair enough, but like basketball courts and like ice rinks and stuff are still kind of open too, which is kind of crazy. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
I'm happy they're open. I think like especially with the winter season and there is like seasonal depression. I'm happy there's at least some stuff open. Like of course you'd want the gyms open and maybe they'll go back, maybe they'll change their mind, but yeah, I'm happy at least there is outlets for those people and for a lot of people still.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I hope you don't. I don't hope we don't have to do push-ups and bodyweight squats for another 8 weeks though. That's already been there, done that. Don't love it.
Oh man. Yeah, no, it's a tough situation. I can't wait to get back to the gym and have to restart all my lifts again.
That's been the last 2 years for everybody. Just lose your gains, come back, and all that.
Yeah, but anyways, with this whole end of the year, for those who might be listening to this in the future, today is December 27th, and we're really kind of coming up to the new year. So me and Pat, we've decided to do a bit of a recap of Natty News because we started this about a year ago. Like, let me double check. But our first episode, I think, was January 6th. So we've really been doing Natty News for almost a full year, and through that we've had 44 episodes, which is mind blowing that we had 44 episodes of talking about stuff. Like it's kind of crazy how much has happened. So today me and Pat wanted to go over, a little rundown of some of the highlights, some of the amazing guests we've had, and really recap the lessons we learned. Because I'll be honest, like I think I've learned so much from doing Natty News. Like I think I've gained the most out of anyone from this. Just about all the stuff I've learned from you, Pat, and from our amazing guests we've had, and just researching and coming up with stuff. Like it really has been a great learning experience, and I know for people who listen, it's hard to listen to every episode, and I totally get that. So try to give a good recap of some of the key things we learned in this year, and yeah, try to make sure that you come back in 2022 even better. Um, but yeah, anything you want to add before we kind of jump into some of this?
No, I think it's pretty cool. Like for those of you who haven't listened since the start, we kind of just started this. We were honestly a little bored in quarantine, and we like talking about fitness. And we're like, well, we could buy some mics and just talk about this and see if anybody wanted to listen to it, right? And I don't think at first we thought we were gonna get any traction or views, really. And eventually we got some pretty cool guests on, people that we used to look up to as kids. So like, yeah, we love it.
Pat, the numbers still blow me away. Like, we're closing into about 3,000 total views, and like that just blows me away that people listen.
Yeah.
Like, it is incredibly humbling and also just so cool that that happens. And even like on the last day before gyms closed, Pat and I we got the chance to have a workout, and we actually met people who listened to it, and
Yeah.
that was so cool. Like that was yeah, really something. But yeah, to kind of maybe uh start getting into some of the meat and potatoes. before we kind of actually go into the details, Pat, what has been your favorite Natty News moment?
Favorite Natty News moment? Oh man, that's hard to put it on one, but honestly, I do think getting that chance to like when we talked to Frank Huang and we got it set up and it was confirmed that he was coming on to talk to us. Like we both watched this guy as a kid, and for those of you that haven't checked out his channel, it's like latest videos are so inspiring. So when he jumped on and he was just like having a great time and like mentioned that like we were just a part of his family too by being his viewers. Like yeah, I was ecstatic after that. I was feeling a high after that for a day or two for sure. How about
You
you?
know, all, well, I just want to add a comment to that. Like, for people who might have watched Frank's video, he is nicer in person than he is in his videos. Like, I cannot say he is unbelievably nice and kind and a great person. Like, it's not one of those things where never meet your heroes. Like, Frank, great guy.
Meet your
Wish
heroes.
yeah, you should meet Frank. Very, very nice guy. So, just wanted to, completely agree with you. That was a super cool experience. Man, I gotta say, one of the highlights I really liked was when we first had our very first guest, Dominic, on. And even though both you and I knew Dominic, and it wasn't like getting a strange or anything, it was kind of like, man, this is really cool. We have a guest. And we've had many guests on, and they've all been amazing. Love them all. But I think that first one just was really special, and it was like, yeah, this is cool. We're doing a whole guest thing on the podcast. I really like that, and hope to do much, much more of that in the future. Uh, but yeah, no, that's some great highlights. How about Pat? Maybe let's run down for those who might have not listened to all of our guest episodes. What are some of the things we maybe talked with guests, and maybe some like for people who maybe haven't listened to them? What are some guest ones that maybe they should check out?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think they're all worth talking about. So we can just run through them a little bit in order, do a quick recap, and let's talk about our favorite thing that we learned from each of them. So starting with Dom, as we mentioned, like so Dom came on and he told us about the field of kinesiology, and we thought he was suited to talk about that because he's unlike me. He was actually working with patients quite regularly, and I think the biggest thing I learned from Dom was just like when you learn to exercise, you just got to keep it simple. You have to get started. And he kind of said that there is all the fancy science about it, but you have to go back to basics. A mix of compound movements and isolation movements, and it's kind of just the theme of Natty News. Keep it simple.
All right, and yeah, so another guest we had that was great was Levi, another personal friend of both you and myself. And Levi kind of brought his own journey as someone who kind of grew up always very skinny and loved movies and action heroes and all that, and decided to bulk up, and kind of him facing all the BS in the fitness industry, something I'm actually very passionate about, the fake natties telling you all you need to do is eat chicken and broccoli and work out 8 times a week, then you'll get massive, when yeah, they're doing a little non-natty activities on the side. So that was something I really enjoyed that episode of Levi, and kind of gave a really good perspective of someone who's kind of starting out and some of the early pitfalls you can fall into, like, spending all your money on like mass gainers and all this BS, and getting too hyper focused on just gotta have chicken and broccoli, gotta have my 6 meals a day and all of that. Like, I think that was a great episode for someone who's early on their journey, and Levi was, man, he was sharp with figuring out these pitfalls and avoiding them, and hoping he's making those great gains. Definitely gotta maybe have him on and see how he's been growing in this last year. But yeah, after we finished Levi, Pat, who was on next?
Yeah, well, next was when we had our guy Ice1Q Frank Huang on, and I mean, we talked about so much stuff, obviously, like, and it's funny that the least interesting part, well, not the least interesting part, but the YouTube and fitness career stuff was just such a small part of that conversation and we got a lot more into him talking about, obviously, caring for family and finding success in life that's outside of social media. And one thing that I learned from him is talking about the illusion of social media, how, nowadays everybody's just putting their highlights on their Instagram and their whatever Facebook and whatnot, and it looks like everybody's just flat out killing it. But then, in reality, to get these big wins, like you and I both know, you have to struggle, fail, and even when you're succeeding, supposedly there's like so many little things that can go wrong, and nothing's sunshine and rainbows. And one thing he taught us was, you just gotta value each day, and especially in this Christmas time, like understand that the time you have with your loved ones is, you don't have that forever, so you gotta really value that, right? Like our Natty news time on a weekly basis. This is one of my favorite times of the week. So yeah, that was my favorite thing I learned. Just like value the time you have, value the people in your life, and there's the Instagram clout is secondary to that.
Definitely. No, that's very, very true. And again, for those who haven't seen Iceland Cube's videos, his recent videos about his mom's battle with dementia, like, man, I think those are the best videos on YouTube I've ever seen. And really made me reflect a lot of my own life. So highly recommended. They're tough watches, but man, they're amazing. And yeah, and then I think afterwards we had Tom Sroka on, right?
Yeah, we had Coach Tom on, and do you want to take this one or shall I?
Yeah, I can take that one. So with Tom, like, I think Tom was our first guest on who was a world competitor. He was our first world competitor athlete. And man, Tom just did everything. He did Olympic weightlifting. He did strongman. He did, what was that wrestling thing he did again?
Yeah, mass wrestling, where you put your feet between the board with two guys and you kind of do like a tug of war.
Yeah, and man, the stories Tom had, especially working with the late great Coach Pendley, and just that experience and that difficulties and kind of the highs of highs and the lows of lows, and just going through that and kind of showing what it takes to be an elite athlete and kind of sacrifice was amazing. And also it was great hearing what he was doing in the high school and helping out the kids and bringing in the next generation of great lifters. Yeah, it was really cool getting on someone like Tom, who really has been at the top of these athletic achievements and is still doing amazing things.
Yeah, and to add on top of that, I remember one quote that he said was that there's no one out there that can be a top athlete while being a top coach, because and it was a really interesting thing to say, is that at the end of the day, being a great athlete is a bit of a selfish endeavor, because your goal is to always work on yourself. So it to me, it brought that thing into my mind where there'll be a day where Lifter Pat will no longer be Lifter Pat, and I can then become my peak version of myself as a coach when I have all that energy.
No, it's not gonna be Coach Pat. It's gonna be full-time podcast Pat.
or that you can't be a great athlete and a great podcaster at the same time.
Yeah, no, Tom was fantastic, and then afterwards was Zane, our very good personal friend. You want to take over this one?
Yeah, that was just a great moment. And for those of you who don't know, in first day of high school, me, Anwar, and Zane all sat together in our homeroom class. And it's pretty crazy that 10 years later, we're all sitting together and all professionals and talking together. And Zane took over a very interesting topic. He talked to us about drugs as a pharmacist. And, we talked about all kinds. We talked about difference between steroids and taking hormones and SARMs that are so popular nowadays. But we are obviously natural lifters. It consolidated the fact that being natural is the way to go. As Zane told us a lot about how the drugs have these lasting side effects. Anytime you take something anabolic, you build muscles, great. You build up, you look great, you look big and strong, but you also build everything, because that's what anabolic means. So your bones get bigger, okay, that's fine. But the next thing you know, your heart's getting bigger, your organs are getting bigger, and that's just not something you want. And these changes are not necessarily reversible, right? The other thing I remember he told us about was not all things grow at the same rate. So your muscles grow real quick, but then your ligaments don't. So you're at risk for injury. And we know a lot of pro bodybuilders, guys like Ronnie Coleman have such bad injuries, and the drugs have something to do with that. So just wasn't a logical warning that the drugs are not as magical as they're made to be, as people on TikTok is promoting SARMs like they're like they're gummy bears, and it really like they can be dangerous, and you got to be responsible about them.
Yeah, I mean, again, I truly don't believe no one's a bad person for taking any
Oh,
PED or SARMs. I think you're a bad person for lying. I think that's what it comes to it. So if someone takes SARMs or wants to take PEDs, more power to them. Like, if that's how they want to be, that's how they want to look, that's how they want to accomplish their goals, there's nothing wrong with that. But it is the dishonesty of it that really gets to it. And I think Zane, in that episode really talked about the truth about it, that you will gain all these benefits, but you also are playing a risky game, and it's important to know that when you go into it. And man, I gotta say, it's just amazing how much Zane knew. Like, he was just spitting out all these like biomechanics, chemicals, all this stuff going on. I'm like, wow, you're a really clever dude.
which we should know.
Yeah, as much as I like bust his balls, it's like, man, no, you're a very smart guy. Yeah, I think Derek has to watch out from my friend Zane.
Yeah, actually.
Uh,
Good. So next up after we had Zane was we had our guy Owen Chow, who recently became a dad. So congratulations to Owen.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but I mean I'll give my tidbits on this one. But for those of you who don't know, is Owen's a friend of the show, but he's also a wushu champion. He was a weightlifter. He is the best kettlebell practitioner I will probably ever know. He's also an entrepreneur, getting into restauranteering. And now getting into acting too, and a dad. So it's just all the great things. And from Owen, I mean, the guy's a specimen. And I think what I learned from talking to him was that, you gotta think, if you want to be good at something, you gotta think of it as practice, not a task, not a workout, not a sweat session. Like, think of it as practice. And every time Owen works out, he's got meticulous technique. He's always thinking about how to get better. And so even though he only works out sometimes for 10, 12, 15 minutes, he's amazingly strong. He's got amazingly great technique, and he works out not only just, to be strong, but also to be functional for life, so he can go and do flips and be a stuntman and all the things he wants to do. So really great example of using natural training as a way to enhance his life.
Man, and I remember Owen, he brought up a great point that really stuck with me too, was like, how much do you want to sacrifice for something? Like, if you want to like deadlift like 600 pounds or something, it's like, how much do you want to give up? Are you going to give up time to do other work or do other things? And with your career ambitions, your personal life, like, what are you willing to give up for this goal? And like, is it really worth just getting a number to go higher when you can start working on other things? And for some people it is. For some people, getting that number higher is the most important thing. But I think it's very important to ask yourself those questions. And Owen definitely puts a lot of thought in that with himself and his training.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing from all of our guests that we had is we have some specialists and we have some generalists in the mix of things, right? Where, guys like Frank and Owen are generous in like nowadays in their fitness. They're very general, right? They're working out for health and for whatnot. And then we have other people who have come on who have like been pro bodybuilders, pro strongmen, pro weightlifters. So it's really cool to see that there's no right answer. You just have to think about what your goals are and train accordingly.
Yeah, and speaking of actors, our next guest was Ryan, and Ryan is Ryan Jefferson Booth for his full name. He recently is on The Flash as a pretty main villain right now, right? Like, it's like the main antagonist for this like storyline. I'm not big in superhero shows, Pat, so maybe you can explain it a little better than
I
me.
watched it. Yeah. So Ryan had a role on Flash season 8 episode 1, so he was part of the Royal Flush gang. So the last time we talked to Ryan, he was just joking about how it's been really damn hard to find some good roles during COVID. So it was almost right after that he's got his role. So they watched Natty News and got him on. So congratulations. But no, like, Ryan did great, and it was awesome to see him on TV. I went and watched the episode.
Yeah, I need to catch it out. You said season 8, episode 1 of Flash. I'm gonna have to find it. And
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Yeah, and man, Ryan, the stories he had, kind of going through. I think that's a great episode for any aspiring actor. Like, I don't think you and I had really much interest in that, but kind of to hear that role and hear about the experiences, because Ryan has been man, he's been in a lot of stuff. Like had a an incredible career, and he's still getting these great parts in. And also hearing about his fitness journey too, going from being like this cardio machine, lean, single body fat percentage, to now kind of like this beast of a guy, just lifting heavy, doing these quick sprints. Like his whole transformation while balancing his whole acting ambitions was just such an amazing story.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that was honestly a very unique chance for us to, because you never hear anyone, like you hear movie stars and then that's the only people you hear from that are actors, but you don't hear from the everyman, a guy who has to struggle, and like he's telling us how he has to get to roll call at 4 a.m., right? And, and like be there for 12 hours and how sometimes you're waiting for months to get that gig. And like those are the real stories and the real struggles that are really interesting to hear, and to hear him talk about how much he loves uh, being able to be on a film, even if it's a small role, just to hopefully inspire someone with your work.
Yeah, no, that was a really great experience hearing from Ryan. And our next guest was another kind of popular YouTuber, or I guess influencer. We got Kane, aka Timberwolf, and that was another one where it was like it was really cool that like he was so open to coming on. Like we just DM'd him on Instagram. Great guy, came on, no issues, and like another really down to earth and cool guy. Like Kane is like what I want to be when I'm in my 50s, just jacked, working out, painting, uh, provocative pieces, but also very beautiful pieces. And yeah, I think that episode, it was great to hear his journey, but one thing I really loved was just how open he was with the mental illness. Like, that was something I never really knew about him, his battles with depression, kind of overcoming that and going through those, and just his whole viewpoint on everything. Like, he really was. He had much more depth than you might imagine just seeing this jacked 50-year-old. And also, all of his stories about being a comic nerd and all that was just so cool. Like, you have Kane who was on, like, these really big photo shoots and magazine covers having debates about superheroes on, like, online forums. Like, you
Yeah,
can't write. No, Timberwolf was, like, definitely one of the coolest people I've ever met.
absolutely. And it was also cool to, like, even though it was a very minor part, but we talked about working out a little bit, and like like really like his movements are so simple. His workouts, they're push-ups, pull-ups, dips, and core work,
Yeah.
and for a 50 something year old, he's amazingly in shape, right? And that's so crazy that even with the industry evolving and people using all kinds of technology and whatnot, as we've talked about, and like programming, like he does the basics, and hey, he looks better than 99% of us. So just another reminder to stick to the basics.
Yeah, man. And even now with lockdowns in Toronto and gym closures, like he's just been doing push-ups and pull-ups for like over a year, and he's still keeping an unbelievable physique.
Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, not to mention, like he talked a lot about how the exercise and fitness is like just as important to mental health as it is to the physical. Just because I think when everything else is out of control, like you can still get down and do your exercise and get better at something, and like that's always infinitely helpful.
No, definitely, definitely. Um, but yeah, after Kane, we got our next world-class athlete, Janela, and man, that was a cool one. That was a really amazing one to hear her story of how you would say she got into weightlifting a little later in life, later than most people pick up a barbell, and just the height she's hit, and just the championship she's won, and that journey and dedication was amazing. That was one I sent to my mom. I was like telling her, like, look, you can get out there. Let's get you on a barbell too.
Yeah, right. It's yeah, and like not only was she like moving with a barbell, like she started with the barbell in her 40s and became a world champion after that, right? And like one thing, like I was going back and watching a bit for this episode, and one thing she changed my mind on was like the norms we think about regarding recovering from injury and ages and whatnot. Because you would think, 40 something female, elbow fracture, that might be it, right? Or like when you go back to exercise, you have to be like really careful and baby them around. But one thing I thought about, hey, like if you're trying to do something amazing, then you're going to overcome the norms because the norms are based on the average person, right? And I think, we're all capable of doing something amazing, not because we're talented or anything, but if you really put the hard work in, because a lot of people aren't willing to do that. And like Janella would work out, like she works out every single day, regardless of whether she has like 10 to 12 clients, or like how many calls or how much sleep she didn't get. Like she's going to get her workout done. And I think like every single person has something to learn from that if you're not reaching your goals, perhaps you can always be working a little bit harder like Jay is.
And her dedication, like I think of all of our guests, I think she had the most dedication to the sport and to lifting. Like, not only does she make sure she gets her workout in, there's no question about that, but she also mentioned she cooks all of her meals at home. Like, she's very careful with her macronutrients, her recovery, and all that. Like, I believe she mentioned her and her partner are both very high level lifters, so they take it very seriously, and it shows. And I mean, Pat, I would say you're also a pretty high level lifter, but you like to have your time, you like to go out, you like to eat a little too many calories. I get it, but having the dedication she has is just awe-inspiring, and it kind of really shows how hard you can really push yourself. Like, even when you get into your later years, you can still be an amazing competitor, athlete, and really still make a lot of gains.
Yeah, and like she just finds ways to get an edge, like controlling each and every one of her macros and her sleep and all that. I could, like, honestly, I can't bring myself to do it, and it's just about how much you want it. So, yeah, she is amazing.
Yeah, no question about that. So, who did we have afterwards?
Well, like, speaking of amazing athletes, we had our guy Andy, who I just talked to very recently and saw in the gym. But, with Andy, as a recap, he is a powerlifter and weightlifter, or super total athlete, and he's pretty much at the national level in both. The guy can bench 365 weighing like 160 pounds. And what did we learn from Andy? Now, I think the biggest thing I learned was that, like, first of all, it's a lot of fun to get into competitive sport, and we both encourage everyone to do it, but to not forget why you started and to still remember to have fun, right? And he talked a lot about how pursuing powerlifting and weightlifting at the same time is not ideal per se, right? Like you're not going to maximize either, but also you only have one life and you only probably have one physical prime for yourself. So if you enjoy it and both of them bring you joy, then like go for it. Not everything's about the science or the precision. You can do some things for fun. If you like doing bicep curls for no reason, go do your bicep curls for no reason, right? All those things.
I love the story Andy was talking about how he would do his weightlifting program, then go to the gym later, kind of in secret, to do some bench pressing.
Like, if the most delinquent thing you do in your life is some secret late night bench pressing, you're keeping yourself pretty straight.
Yeah. No, Andy, like, he is a special type of athlete, being amazing at both those movements. Now, I'm going to embarrass myself. Natty News listeners know I have an awful memory. But who's a very elite Chinese weightlifter? The one who has his whole barbell brand and all that?
Liu Xiaojun?
Yeah, Liu Xiaojun. He had an interview where he was talking about how, like, he only benches, like, 250, 260, which, like, it's not a bad bench, but he's literally one of the greatest weightlifters ever.
Yeah.
And it kind of does show about how, like, to be strong in both avenues is a huge accomplishment. It's not like you have an amazing clean and jerk, you're going to bench 5 plates. It really does show, like, the differences in the sports and how you have to train for both of them to be very strong.
Yeah, exactly. And that was really cool. And just a reminder that, like, you don't have to be an expert to compete, Like, competition's fun. I think that's something we've talked about multiple episodes. Get yourself to compete because it pushes you to be better. And even in all other facets of your life.
Definitely. And, well, I think that was a rundown of the main guests we've had. I mean, all the guests we've had. And they've all been amazing. Like, I would recommend if you had to listen to any of the 9 News episodes, you should listen to the guest ones. I think those are some of our favorites, too. But, Pat, let's maybe talk about what do you think have been the main lessons you've learned from doing Natty News. Like, as I said earlier, I feel like I've learned the most from this. Of all the listeners, everyone we've had, I think I've gained the most. I've learned so much from it, but I'll let you start off. What are some, like, the major things you've learned from us doing Natty News?
Yeah, I mean, like, definitely learned the most from some of our guest episodes, and I think one of the things I talked about just earlier was like this idea of competition. Because we've had multiple competitors like Andy and Janella and guys like Tom and Owen, and they just talked about how like it's equally important to have fun, but it's also equally important to keep competing, because when you compete, you are striving to do something that you've never done before, right? Every time me or you get a PR in a lift, or we, I don't know, put on some amount of muscle, or we win some competition, that's something that that's a new level for us, and we put in the work for it. And I think when we do that, we become better people. So like having guests like this kept me going, because it hasn't been the easiest year to stay motivated to train, right? Because like gyms are opening and closing, and for the longest time I was doing like online competitions, but like that was so huge to keep me going. But second lesson related to that was like just the importance of committing yourself to your craft and being better. I think every single one of our guests are really good at what they do because you can tell they're so passionate about it. That's why they wanted to come on and tell their story, right? Like guys like Tom and his ability to coach, guys like Ryan talking about not just lifting, but like acting, and Kane even talking about painting. You become good at something, not just by being talented but by putting effort into it every single day. And I don't know, just like all these episodes, cumulatively, I just keep that in the back of my mind, whether I'm trying to be a good physio or play the piano or learn how to do more than 2 dips or whatever. Like if I want to get better, I have to put in the work, and if I'm not, it's okay to not put the work in everything, because you can't be good at everything, and just understand that, like, nothing is like nobody owes us anything. We want to be good at something, we have to put in the work. How about you?
Love it, love it. No, man, I think you should have gone second because I think your lessons learned are more meaningful than mine. Um, I was thinking about this, about like what was like one of the big takeaways I took from this year, and honestly, one of the things that my mind has completely changed on from doing Natty News was recovery and how we heal our bodies and how we recover. Like how rice, the old way of doing recovery is kind of not really relevant nowadays, and how important movement is in recovery. Like, how many years of my life I've been like, oh, my shoulder's feeling weird. Let me just take a break for a couple months. And
Yeah.
like realizing like that's not the way you should do it. Like the importance of moving and healing through that. And from talking with you and many of our guests talked about similar stories about how doing this physio work, how about moving through and healing the injury that way was the key. And man, I've had a complete 180. Like that's been one of the biggest things I learned. And like Pat, you have no idea how many people I tell about the anti-inflammatories and what they do with injuries. Like that was one of the most mind-blowing things I've ever heard. I actually have to say, of episodes you and I've done, I think the Pain, Strange, and Gauge episode 39 is the best one. I think between like just me and you, because I don't want to put our guests on there. The guest ones are on another level.
Yeah.
But episode 39 for me, I think was like the one where like I learned so much in that one episode.
Yeah. Well, why don't you recap the anti-inflammatory fact for those of you who might not have time to listen to that episode?
Alright, so like I think most people understand how it feels to have inflammation. And for a lot of us, we think inflammation is bad. For years, you might see on TV, like, you might see a whole ad of your muscles swelling up red and these anti-inflammatories come through and beat it up and heal you and
Yeah.
you're good to go and all that. And that's what I thought. Like, I fell for the marketing.
Yeah.
But as Pat very elegantly and scientifically told, was about how inflammation is such an important part of our body to heal. And by giving these anti-inflammatories, you're not letting your body actually fully heal that injury. And so by taking that, you're kind of actually delaying the process of healing instead of just kind of going through it, keep moving without pain, and then you'll have a full healing effect, and everything will be good. So inflammation isn't this evil thing; it's something our body does for a purpose, and anti-inflammatories shouldn't be used like Tic Tacs, which I think a lot of us could be guilty of, including myself.
Yeah, exactly. It's just something that like yeah, like people aren't told about, right? And like it's not anyone's fault that they do it, but yeah, like just something to keep in your mind. And I do agree that episode was a lot of fun, and based on some learning I did in school, and it was a lot of fun to spew it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best one we've done for education purposes and Mando. But the whole thing about recovery has just been such a big game changer for me about how I approach it and how I think about it when I train. Uh, Another one too is actually about the whole bulking and cutting thing. Like I say this to Avon too about how you only need 300 calories to bulk up. Instead of having to
Surplus,
think
surplus.
surplus, not 300 total. You don't need to have these crazy 5,000 calorie meals like The Rock might have or something like that. That was another really fun fact I learned.
Yeah, no, those are equally good. I mean, we're a training show, but we also talk to people, so we kind of had the personality things that we learned, and then we also had the training notes.
Yeah, Pat, I'm putting you kind of on the spot, but of the episodes you and I did, which one would be your favorite? So I mentioned 39, Pain, Strange, and Gains. That's my favorite one. What do you think is the best one we've done?
Man, okay, you're gonna make me scroll through here because we've done like 50 of these. This is not easy. So my favorite independent episode, outside of the ones you mentioned, is probably the personal trainer rant episode. Um, where we what number is that? That's 20. So halfway through episode 20, where we just went off on how the baseline for someone to be a trainer is quite low, and like despite being a trainer myself, I get really frustrated all the false knowledge that happens online with people who've done a weekend course starting to talk about functional training this and like movement correction that and then people started to spew bullshit like squats are terrible and you gotta do like single leg banded Joel Seidman squats or whatever. So it's just like a whole rant about the industry too and how there's so many lies and so many things that draw regular people in who have good intents to be better and pay good money and then get a service that like perhaps even leaves them feeling worse about their own body. So that was a really good talk if you guys haven't checked it out.
I still think, Pat, one of my dreams for Natty News is to have Joel Seedman on.
I don't know if I can handle it, man.
Uh, Good old Joel Seedman. No, that was a fantastic episode. And I think that was one where we had a little more disagreement. I mean, I think you and I can be a bit of a hive mind. We normally agree on a lot of things, but that one I think was a little more disagreement. Again, I think, I definitely think if you're you don't need a personal trainer to lift. Maybe if you just want to go there, get a little healthier, get some gains. I don't think there's anything to do with it. And I think we had a bit of a disagreement on that belief.
Yeah, I do certainly still think that having a coach or a trainer occasionally is like some of the hugest gains you can get. But yeah, I will stand on that belief.
Yeah, we won't delve into that right now. But Pat, let's just talk about yourself a bit. Over the year, you've done a lot of stuff. You've competed, you've made some gains. You recently hit a 3-plate clean, which was amazing. I got a chance to see that, which was incredibly badass. But what would you say has been your like highlight this year, with your fitness, with your lifting, or just overall?
Yeah, well, man, the lifting one's easy. It's the day I qualified for nationals in weightlifting. And I've told the story way too many times that I'm totally pumping my own tires. But like a week before that competition to qualify, I strained my knee pretty bad. I couldn't do an air squat. So my coach gave me some lifting wraps, which I've never worn before. And 7 days later, I PR'd my snatch and hit a 139 kilo clean and jerk to qualify for nationals. And yeah, that's easily the lifting highlight. Didn't get better than that. and to do it amidst the pandemic and to have some of my lifting friends like Janella helping me to set up the competition was so great and so fun. So yeah, and then outside of lifting, I gotta say it's graduating and then getting back into school. As you know, it's Pat future physiotherapist Woo now, and like getting into physio school was a long term goal, and I think for a very long time I didn't have the greatest confidence in getting the grades and whatnot, and that I would even be able to become a good physio. But I think it's finally dawning on me with school, getting into school, that like I can be good at this job, and that I love that I'm able to carry over my previous knowledge from being a trainer, and even like take knowledge from school and bring it into the podcast. It's been amazing to kind of mix those together.
I know. I feel like I'm getting a degree in physiotherapy with how much I've been learning from you, going through all that school programming. But no, that's
Yeah,
been
man.
yeah. You've had a pretty impactful year.
Yeah, I tried my best. You can always do more, as we know. But yeah, like there's been some good highlights in lifting and outside lifting. How about you?
Definitely. So I think in like lifting or fitness wise, I think some of my highlights would definitely be learning new types of like skills. Like one, learning how to swim has been a pretty big highlight. I did do swimming lessons when I was a kid, but I wasn't in the water for like 10 years, over 10 years. And actually having to learn how to do that and being able to, like swim a kilometer now has been a great journey and something I'm very proud of and hope to keep on growing and learning more with. And for some other listeners might remember my journey to do a cartwheel and kind of be able to conquer that skill. I think with this newest set of lockdowns, it's time to tackle the handstand. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
but I think both of those have been great goals, and although they haven't been specifically lifting related, they were definitely fitness things I've always wanted to do, and I think that's kind of what I'm more interested in, being more of a generalist than a specialist in any movement. So I'm hoping 2022 to continue learning more of those skills and improving the ones I have. Um, I would say in personal life wise, I think something I'm highlighting is I've been able to spend more time volunteering and helping out different organizations and giving back. I don't know if I told on the show, but one of the organizations I'm involved pretty heavily with is one called Close the Gap, which is a California-based one to help underprivileged high school students kind of gate that professional network where many professionals work with them, help them learn how to apply for colleges, apply for jobs, resumes, career paths, a lot of things you might not learn if you come from a less privileged background. So I think that's something I'm very happy to do this year, start volunteering and giving back a bit more, and hope to do more in 2022.
Yeah, well, like Anwar, you don't give yourself a lot of credit in the show, but like you are really good at networking and obviously talking to people and setting up career opportunities. So like, yeah, keep doing that good work.
Thank you, Pat. Yeah, no, but it's been a good year, and I'm looking forward for 2022. And honestly, I'm very much looking forward to hear from other people if they have any goals or what their favorite moments are. So on our Instagram, I think we'll throw in some polls. It'll be fun to hear what you guys enjoyed. And I know Pat and I were expecting to keep this up for another year. 2022 is just going to be more
Yeah.
Natty news, more guests, more topics, and more fun times. But yeah, Pat, do you want anything left to say before we close off today?
No, I think that's it for me.
All right, perfect. Well, for the last time for 2021, Natty News out.
Natty news out.